I would also like to talk about other resources that you're going to find on the website for this project. They include, first of all, resource books, works of nonfiction. One is, of course, the Robert Bly that I mentioned earlier, News of the Universe. A very important book in our collection, Camille Dungy's Black Nature, 4 Centuries of African American Nature Poetry. I wrote about this book in my annotation that her introductory essay to this collection is a brilliant response to the perceived absence of Afro-American poets in mainstream anthologies, including the Myers, and a powerful corrective to the notion that Afro-Americans are historically disengaged from the natural world. They are in fact not. They just have a unique relationship to the natural world based on their particular historical experience. Included in these poems are those out of the Reconstruction, the Harlem Renaissance, the Black Arts Movement, and more recent experimental poetics. We also have works such as Itchatucknee, Secret Waters, a group of poems by Stephen Earle. A really valuable compilation is a book called Florida Poetry, or Florida in Poetry by Maurice O'Sullivan and Jane Anderson. This book concludes with a bestiary, and in that collection they break down the poems by reptiles, birds, fish, crustaceans, insects, and mammals. You can pick just about any critter you would find in Florida, and there's a poem that's been written about it. And these poems date from 500 years ago, one of the first Spanish encounters in Florida. It's an amazing collection. I'll say more about it in a minute. There's also the poems of Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings, a couple of novels by Carl Hyacin, Florida's, of course, wonderfully satirical novel writer and humorist. Bartram's Travels through Florida. It was in Bartram's Travels that we get the description of the springs of North Florida that made its way to Coleridge and became the inspiration for Kubla Khan. So there's this amazing connection between naturalists exploring early Florida and how the Romantics then picked up on these descriptions and inspired their works. Also, Melrose-based Albert, a couple of works by him, and others. So there's wonderful resources such as this. We also have in our collection many useful audiovisual resources. We have a film called Archie Carr in Praise of Wild Florida. That film was narrated by our former colleague, John Ames, and is based on the Florida writings of the great and prolific Dr. Archie Carr, who lived in Micanopy. There are testimonials in this from Bob Graham and 2 authors, Peter Matheson and Russell Hoban, who were inspired by his works. I'd also like to talk about a CD-ROM, rather, Natural Florida in Word, Image, and Deed. I had the good fortune of producing this with the Florida Humanities Council on a grant, and it includes many of the poems from the book of poetry that I just discussed, as well as 18 songs about natural Florida, photography, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, architecture, antique postcards, and a series of threaded essays, all that talk about the natural features of Florida. And on the CD, when you go to the opening screen, you can toggle and access these works both by bioregion. As you move around, you move the mouse around, you'll see each of the bioregions light up. And you can choose in that bioregion poetry, fiction, nonfiction, etc. There's also another menu that would allow you to access these works by genre, poetry, fiction, and so forth. And that's in our collection. I'm going to make a group of these DVDs available to faculty through the department office, and would be happy to give presentations about this to faculty if they'd like that. There are also a couple of interesting films in our collection. One is the Hollywood version of Farley Mowat's Never Cry Wolf, and also the Hollywood version of Jack London's To Build a Fire. Both of those are great literary works, and we have the film versions. In addition, there's Water's Journey, the West Skiles adventure into the caverns of North Florida, a brilliant film. A film called Wild Alachua, actually two films. They are in a collection of films that I produced for the Florida Museum of Natural History called Wild Alachua. There are 3 half-hour films on this collection. One of them, The Wild Heart of Florida, is based on a book by Jeff Ripple and features Peter Matheson, Janice Ray, Carl Hyacin, and other Florida writers. Also, there's a film called Wild Alachua. It's all produced and filmed in this area of Florida. So we go to Payne's Prairie with photographer John Moran. We go to the Devil's Millhopper. We go to the Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings homestead. And we go to the Dudley Farm, a Civil War working homestead. So you may find that these half-hour videos might enhance your teaching of this nature-based literature. All of these resources and the different modules that I've described will be available on a website, and I hope that over time that website will grow, hopefully with suggestions from faculty who will discover other exciting ways to integrate nature-based writing in their classes, and who will share those teaching classroom experiences with their fellow faculty. Additional resources, audiovisual and otherwise, will continue to be added to this site over time. So I hope you find this resource valuable. It was a pleasure putting it together. And in the fall, I will be making myself available to talk more about it and to provide classroom workshops. Thanks for your interest.